Welcome to A Reseller's Life. My name is Chris. Thank you so much for joining me. In this episode, I want to talk about 5 ways to outsource your competition in a flooded market when selling on eBay, Poshmark, or Mercari, or Amazon, or any platform. It's always the same. In fact, I'm pretty surprised when I hear resellers complain about the market because this happens to every single market. Once something shows up as profitable, what'll happen is the market will adjust and the profit will decrease until it basically costs the same to provide the service or value as what it costs to produce it. All the profit goes away in mature markets. That's been happening since the beginning of time. Every garden will be invaded. That's just how it works. But I'm gonna give you guys 5 ways to really take advantage of this. And the story is from Jim Rohn, where he talks about 2 resellers at the bar. One reseller says, wow, with all these sellers, how are we supposed to make any money? And the other seller is saying, well, I think it's a great time to go out and look for opportunities because right now, while the market's flooded, everyone's going to be at home, especially the resellers. I totally agree with that. I only see resellers going crazy when they hear some opportunity that's really powerful. Like, you can go out and do this. Then a bunch of resellers go out and do it. Everyone's excited online. And then that market tanks. And then we have this conversation again. This has been happening since I started. The only difference now is there are more platforms, but if you look at the same categories that are flooded, it's the same ones over and over again. And I'll give you one secret that's not part of these top 5. It's always the easiest categories that are the ones that are flooded. I haven't seen farm equipment hasn't become more flooded. It's the same. There's not that many people doing it because it's hard. The gentleman that I met that's flipping dental equipment on Amazon FBA, he doesn't have any new competitors. My friend Prince, who's coming to visit me, told me that even after sharing his store at eBay Open, there are no new competitors in this category. It's hard to get into a category that requires talking to a manufacturer or a supplier. Those ones are safe. If we're talking about ones you can just go into your closet and immediately start selling, that's going to be flooded every single time there's a wave of reselling interest, right? So how can you stand apart? Number 1, you can do a zip code search. So this is pretty cool. Thank you to Teresa Cox. People call her T-Money. She just looked up in my zip code how many people are selling shoes. That's my main category. So the last couple of days, I actually hired a driver and I went sourcing for 5 hours. I was working on adjusting my listings while my friend drove me around. We went to probably 40 stores. It was easier because I could concentrate on navigating, and also we were really focused on what we wanted to look for in the store. So it didn't take very long per store. The only exception to that was we spent a lot of time in the Nike outlet and the Nike clearance store. We spent a good chunk of time at those 2 stores. The other ones, it was quick. Go in, look for different opportunities, bounce. In those stores, we saw people with scanners. We saw people who recognized me, and the traffic was horrible. One of the stops took 1 hour and 10 minutes for only 5 miles. Okay, so this is sort of a reality in the Bay Area. Now, according to the zip code search, there's something like 20,000 shoes within a 10-mile radius of where I live for sale, just Nike. And you can narrow it down by new without box to find out how many people near you are flipping the outlet shoes that usually do not have the box. True wholesalers will have the box. You can also search and find out if you're in your area, there are distributors. Then you can actually reverse engineer and find out who is selling these shoes and try to get your way into it. I mean, a relationship with them so that you can jump in on that market too, because sort of a unspoken thing is that most distributors only work with a few sellers. So the best way to find that distributor is through another big seller. That sounds kind of obvious, but it's not something that people commonly do. They just bounce from store to store to store looking for the best opportunity and then complaining that it's flooded when the exact same people are going through the same stores as you. I found one pair of $40 profit Adidas, and I thought it was too good to be true because it was the first pair. And when I went there, I opened it up. I looked it up on Amazon, looked it up on StockX, looked it up on eBay, looked it up on Poshmark to get an idea. And $40 clear profit on more than one platform. And I was thinking, okay, there are other people in this store that are resellers. You can tell if they have the scanner or if you can tell people who are there shopping for themselves or people who are shopping that are resell after some practice. So why was this shoe left behind? Look through the whole shoe. On the bottom right, there was a big black stain. Not really worth my time to try to clean that out. So if it's too good to be true, it probably is. You're not going to run into that kind of opportunity. You're going to have to explore really the whole store and figure out a market that's not flooded. To give you guys an idea, the zip code search in my area brings up 250,000 pairs of shoes within 100 miles of here. After I went to Phoenix, I realized that it probably makes sense for me to buy a house or get a commercial property 100 miles from where I live, so that the cost is like 1/3 of where it is right now. I mean, you can still get a 50 cent per square foot place in California. It just needs to be far away from here. So I would guess, from looking at the zip code search, that most of the people doing this at scale are doing that. They're moving their money in their warehouse to a separate location that's safer, less expensive, and it's less expensive to hire help in the middle of nowhere than it is in the Bay Area, where 90 grand is considered low income, right? So makes sense to me. And after listening to a lot of stuff by Watch Me Amazon, that's Larry. He is probably the most ostentatious seller on social media. He does millions of dollars in sales, and I basically researched all the interviews that he was on. And one of the interviews, the person was really grilling him, like, how much money do you actually make? Show me your bank account. How's your company set up? Are you offsetting the future earning? How are you doing this? Show me the money. And Larry was saying he pays himself a nice salary, and the rest is reinvested in the inventory in the future, basically deferring the tax liability. And it made me realize that all of the big people that I meet at conferences, what they're doing essentially is using reselling to gain real estate. Eventually, they buy a building and they make the equity from their rent payment, or they run it out of their house or a duplex, and they're using it to offset the cost of real estate, which is awesome, because if your business is stable, you're essentially guaranteeing yourself a tenant, and you can get some creative tax write-offs by doing that. And just like Amazon doesn't pay any corporate tax by deferring the money into the future, people are doing the same exact thing, especially that BRRRR method with real estate, which I'm barely learning about, which is like basically buying stuff, renovating it, renting it out, refinancing. There might be another R in there, but the idea is park your assets, keep getting new ones. And I believe reselling is a really cool opportunity to do this. Because as you get more inventory, instead of paying yourself a larger salary, you get more inventory, and year after year, it actually grows. Okay, so the first one is zip code search. Number 2 is all success stories always end up getting flooded as soon as they become known. This is why when I was watching Watch Me Amazon stories, he was saying this is not passive income. Why wouldn't it be passive income if you get wholesale products? The reason is because those products lose their rank. They fall out of popularity, or more people jump in on the market, and that goes away. Now, I thought that was really brilliant and really true, because for me, my experience has been every time I come up with something, I'm not going to go as far as to say YouTubers ruin it. It's not just YouTubers, okay? It's just common sense. There's software that's way more powerful than any YouTuber, okay, that can compare the different websites and give you arbitrage opportunities far greater than any YouTuber can spoil the goods. That's complete nonsense. The technology behind all this software that's doing that is the real culprit, because you can basically leverage 100,000 people's eyeballs by just having it crawl the internet and look at prices to give you an idea. All the big companies really have their own software to track this. We have Scott, who is the smartest seller. He talks about making his own software that can track different things. I've noticed this with pretty much every big seller. When I went to eBay Open last year, not this year, but the year before, some big sellers told me, Chris, if you want to scale, you need to start making your own systems, because you need to get really good at one thing, and getting good at one thing doesn't exist. All the tools out there are for everybody. You need to make a tool for you to help you look for one specific thing. Makes sense to me. As you build technology, you can start keeping track of SKUs and trends and just be slightly ahead of your competition. But just keep in mind, every garden will be invaded. I really believe that. I like that concept, and I like how real Larry is about that, because It's not passive income. And the only way it would be passive income is if you have like a fulfillment center or a prep center where products are coming in and you're not related to the market. You're just processing things and it goes from somebody else's house into the FBA, or maybe you're doing eBay fulfillment, or you're just part of the transportation part, then maybe it's passive income because you always have customers. But if you are an actual retailer, or you're the flipper, your market is constantly going to be changing. So you really need to spend time getting really good at the market. Okay, number 3, exclusivity is what everyone is going for. There's a gentleman in my group. He asked me, Chris, how do you get an exclusive relationship with a supplier? And then he asked the same question to Larry, Watch Me Amazon, and we both had a similar answer. Larry said it's about providing value to the person that you're trying to get that exclusive relationship. And I said it's very much like applying for a job. You want to work for this company that has this deal, and you are the representative for them. They need to trust you are going to be the person that can get their listing up on eBay or Amazon or Poshmark, whatever, and get the best amount of money for them so they can preserve their price. I'm not going to mention who, but I met a company that was having difficulty with wholesale. Their retail business was doing well. They wholesaled it to different vendors, and those people tanked their brand, and they ended up stopping wholesale because those people were ending up just selling it for half of market and screwing up the primary market for them by making the secondary market of their product way too cheap. So that basically crushed that wholesale opportunity, and it's now gone. But if you were doing a good job of maintaining the retail price, why wouldn't they let you manage the brand? So for me, I look at it as a job opportunity. And I know people don't like working for others, but that's probably why you're stuck in your resale business and you haven't grown. It's very much a partnership when you're working with a brand. I have more than a few products now where I am the only one allowed to sell it. I'm not a, what is that called? I am the only person allowed to sell that product, but they're not 10 by 10 by 10 yet, meaning not all of them earn me my goal of $100 a day profit. But I do have probably 7 products now that I am the only person allowed to sell them. And for the very first time ever, I have a product where I share the distribution rights. This has never happened to me before. Okay, so I have a product where myself and another person, we are both allowed to sell it. So that, I just had a conversation with her this morning, and obviously we can't fix prices. I think that's illegal, but we just said, okay, what do you want to do? How do you want to do this? How do you want to avoid screwing up the market? It doesn't sell very often. This is a product that only sells maybe once every 3 days. So we just basically said we agreed to just keep the price reasonable above a certain amount, sort of like our own MAP pricing or manufactured suggested pricing for the product. But of course, I think both of us expect the other person to kind of tank the price a little bit. So it comes with the territory. If there are more than one person allowed to sell the product, it's going to be sort of not necessarily a race to the bottom, but it is a battle. You have to know your competition really well, keep your enemies closer. I just think it's important to recognize that exclusivity is the key to growth. But in order to do that, you may honestly have to accept under 10% margin. I think that that's just the reality. You're not going to find people to let you make huge amounts of margin on their product when they can just hire someone internally to do that. You just need to be the person that they are hiring internally to do it. I do want to shout out the apparel sellers for a second here, because I spent some time at the outlets the last couple of days, and I feel like that's considerably better than retail arbitrage, Ross, Marshalls, etc. But you do need to go on the sale day. So wouldn't be uncommon to go off season. Right now, summer stuff is cheaper. Buy a bunch of summer stuff, sit on it until the spring. That's sort of the name of the game. If it's easy, meaning you're looking for something right now that sells right now, it's on trend, you're probably not going to get very many of those items, and you're going to be constantly chasing the coolest trend, bouncing around from here to there, and those kind of resellers never grow. But the people who plan ahead and they're like, okay, what I'm going to do is right now, summer stuff is cheap. I'm going to pick up shorts. I'm going to pick up stuff that is going to sell really well next year at a discount, especially since all these resellers are panicking and getting rid of their stuff super cheap. You get all that stuff. You wait 6 months, double, triple your money. Do the same thing next season for the following season. start to build a business on that. I also learned that from Buffalo Exchange. Here we have a Buffalo Exchange. They purchase clothing, and I did not realize this. If it's off season, they may not put it onto the floor. I thought that was very surprising. I thought, wow, why wouldn't you immediately list it for sale? But they're not doing that. Right now, they're buying up summer clothes. Not as much as winter clothes, but they do take some. They box it up and they wait until next year. Goodwill is doing that with Halloween supplies right now. If you go to the back of a Goodwill or a Salvation Army, you'll see they actually divide up the back rooms into different seasons. Why would they do that? Because they understand retail operates like that, and Salvation Armies and Goodwills operate in cycles, and they understand the sales trends. And they just basically plan ahead. They treat themselves like a business long term. Okay, number 4, it's easier to maintain than the rebuild. This is really important because as you look for these replenishable items, you do need to have a one-off store. This is just my opinion, okay? Some people say you don't need to ever have a one-off store. You can just fully focus on replenishables. I don't think that's the case, okay? Because I just don't know many people who've successfully done that. Only if you are laser focused on one category can you really do that. Most people don't have that kind of attention span. So what is realistic? A little bit of both. You have a one-off store, and make sure that your category stays stable before you keep adding new ones. This is sort of a mistake if you are learning how to sell shoes. You actually don't need another category, but if you're bored and you want to add something else, make sure your shoe game stays the same because it's much harder to build up once it's gone. Once you lose your pulse on the market, it's totally different. I even noticed this at the Nike outlet. There are certain trends of shoes. If you go to 2 different outlets in the same day, your market knowledge is so on point. You know exactly what things are selling for. Another tip that I can give you guys is I was saving the search for all the shoes that were selling for more than $200. And usually when shoes are selling over $200, Nike knows this, so those shoes aren't really discounted. But that's okay because eventually these products will be clearanced, or you can retail arbitrage them, meaning I'm making a list of the most popular SKUs. Then later, I'm going to hop in, get those, and flip them for a huge profit later. But I'm okay because now I'm just building up this list of SKUs of things that sell for a lot of money. And once in a while, somebody will pop up, list a $200 shoe for $80 because they're just trying to make some extra money or they're desperate. They need their rent money. I can pop in there, grab that pair of shoes. And so I'm not just researching the trends. I'm also building a list of stuff that I know people wouldn't normally do. Most people see a $200 shoe listed for $180 and they don't look it up. I look it up because I want to see what the current market is. There were numerous opportunities with a brand that I'm new to. I'm going to use Wolverine, even though Wolverine is not the brand, of an opportunity where these shoes were available at DSW, which is Designer Shoe Warehouse, and the Amazon price versus the eBay price was double. Okay, so this is a really good rank shoe. Let's just say Wolverine for right now, selling for $200 on Amazon, selling for $80 on eBay. It's not even selling for $80 on eBay. Some poor person has it on eBay for $80 and they can't even move it, and it's selling well at $200 on Amazon. So there's an opportunity where if you were ungated in Wolverine, you could hop in there, buy that $80 shoe, send it in. It's Q4, it's work season time. It's time for those awesome boots. Grab a pair. Killing it. So it's crazy. Going in person is actually really relevant. I think I'm going to continue to do that just so I have a pulse. I no longer think it's a waste of time to drive around, get an idea, go to flea markets, garage sales, thrift, because I personally think it's fun. The only part I don't like is the traffic, but I enjoy looking at what is trending. If you look at for example, why are the Nike Vapor Maxes so expensive? I don't know, but it's currently on trend. You may not notice that unless you actually go out and look. And once you go out and look, you're going to recognize, wow, not only are these expensive, but you're going to run into them online because when they're really popular, people are constantly flipping them. It's like popular items always have opportunities to arbitrage because if they're popular, that means there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. That means there's going to be opportunities for you to buy stuff and flip it. The only exception to that is something vintage or rare. those are much more challenging to get, right? You can't just come up on cool vintage pieces all the time. That takes a little bit more hunting. That takes a specific route. That's why I think you do need to have a maintained eBay store of one-offs while you build this one-off thing for whatever platform. I also like the idea of merchant fulfilling some Amazon items that are off season to avoid storage fees. So thank you again to Teresa T Money on that. It's a good time to get shorts. I'm starting to list some merchant fulfilled per Teresa's advice, and hopefully it works out. Number 5, become known as someone that can move inventory. This is amazing. I just got an email from somebody who has a lot of Merrell shoes. Now, unfortunately, I am not ungated in Merrell on Amazon. If you guys are, maybe you can email me and I can transfer this person to you. I'm not sure if the shoes have a UPC code or not, but as I grow in my reselling career, I kind of want to do wholesale, but I don't fully have the space to do that. If I did, I feel like I could be a nice little hub for people, desperate resellers who want to get rid of their stuff, and then motivated buyers who are trying to grow their business. Connect those two, earn a small 5 to 10% commission in the middle of there, and grow that. I don't think that will ever go away. I find that very stable. If I were to have a warehouse that I could arbitrage that, it would be great, but I personally don't know how to do that. So anyone that has any ideas, there's a gentleman in LA with 3 warehouses and extra space that's considering doing a pilot for me where we divide it into different little pods. And in each pod, you have your stored items, but everyone shares the same lighting kit, the same USPS pickup, FedEx, to make it easier on everybody. Why not we just share all the same systems, have the same loading dock, and then we can use that to leverage better wholesale deals, right? Let's go ahead and test that. Why not? I like the idea of a reseller group, something like a reseller collective. I'm also experimenting with that concept locally. I just need to find something that's not marijuana growing. I cannot believe most of the warehouse space where I live is marijuana growing. I can't believe it's that profitable. It's become crazy. Like every single warehouse is weed. So what I think is also kind of interesting is the cannabis industry. Obviously, that's kind of scary because that's a very desirable product. So they have really maximum security. I was very surprised. Oakland's a little bit rough, but driving in those areas where the warehousing is available, there are certain buildings that have space open. I went to a maker space yesterday with 40,000 square feet. Really cool. 40,000 square feet. They had artists, they had woodworkers. It did scare me a little bit because right when I went inside, the lady was like, Chris, I want to be upfront with you. This warehouse has it could be on fire. A lot of the buildings in Oakland, and we had that ridiculous warehouse fire that killed all those people a few years ago. So she was upfront. She's like, we are in the process of making it more fireproof. A lot of the spaces in Oakland are doing that. There's more and more people becoming makers, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, painters, or whatever. It's becoming a more common job and more accepted. With the internet, if you're really good at what you do, you can sell X amount of things and support yourself. Maybe not kill it, but at least do what you love and get paid. That kind of thing is becoming more and more popular. Live work spaces are very popular. That's something I would consider moving into one of those spots, renting out this place. That sounds cool to me. And my wife's not opposed to that. She's okay with moving into the warehouse as long as it's near public transit because she doesn't have a car. So something to chew on. If you guys appreciate this content, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.